And then, welcome everyone. I'm Nancy. I'm part of the team with Michelle and Serena supporting CMX in London. We had some great events face to face, but obviously the last few months we've been virtual. Let me tell you a little bit about CMX. Well, ladies, why don't you introduce yourselves whilst we're such a small group and we've got the time. Serena, over to you.
Great. Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear us all okay. I'm Serena. I'm 1/3 of CMX Connect London. I oversee the online community team at Alzheimer's Society. We provide a digital service for people affected by dementia. Really lovely to see you all here today. Over to Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah.
Lovely to see you all today. I'm Michelle and I'm the Global Community Manager at Revitalise. We are a fintech startup based in London, and I manage about 850,000 online community. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from you all today.
Thank you. And if you just joined, please introduce yourself on the chat. We've definitely got an Essex bias on the call, so let's see if we can balance that a bit. So CMX, if you haven't heard of us before, it's a big company over in the States, headed up by David Spinks, but there's local chapters all over the world that meet up. And our goal basically is hopefully that you'll meet one awesome person at every event, that you'll get something actionable that you can really implement, and that you can continually advocate and grow your skills and the community industry. So we really don't want any community managers to suffer on their own, or not have anyone to turn to. So we have a Slack channel that you can ask questions anytime. There's CMX Hub on Facebook, and we have these monthly meetings. And it's great to see so many people that have been to our events before. The big flagship event is the annual conference, usually in Redwood City in California, but this time brought to you virtually. It's a great 2-day event and it's for free. So if you haven't seen it already, do sign up. Even if you can't go because of work, you'll get all the recordings. Yeah, it's just wherever you are on your community journey, you come away feeling motivated and inspired and just rejuvenated. So I would make time for that. There's the link in there, and I'll put the link in the chat in a moment. So today we're going to hear from Michael. He's been a massive support to me over many years, and I wanted to use this channel to sort of help him and his communities. They've been thriving, but also they need a bit of revitalizing, and we're going to do a peer assist where we can all share our ideas, hopefully all learn something as well. There's no such thing as a crazy idea. I'm going to let Michael introduce himself in a second, but let me just explain a little bit about the process this afternoon. So the difference from just having a chat and talking about someone's problem is that there's less interruptions in this way. So first of all, Michael's going to present himself and the challenges that he faced. And then we're going to break out into groups and discuss those problems. And Michael's not going to hear those breakouts. He's going to stay in the main room, and we can discuss anything to do with his challenge, and then decide on 3 solutions that we want to come back to the main room and give him, and he can then ask clarifying questions and so forth. So the difference is obviously when you're normally in the room, you might feel that you might be rude about their situation or things that they've tried, and it just gives a complete freedom and open space. Plus, by doing that, the ideas from crowdsourcing this way are usually much stronger and work really well. So I've got a couple of the slides here to sort of help you go through the process if you've never done it before, but just to confirm that Michael will explain his challenge, a bit of background to him and his communities, and we can ask a quick question there before we break out if there's anything you misunderstood, and then we discuss his challenge in breakout groups, and then we come back with our top 3 suggestions back to the group. So on the process, has anyone got a question on this peer assist process? Either come off mute or share it on the chat. But I'll leave you a minute. So why don't I stop that? All good from Ed, thank you for that. Let me hand over to Michael. and you can introduce yourself, and then I'll jump in when we're about to start the group. So you can think while you're hearing from Michael if there's one question you want to ask, but we're not going to have a big discussion. We're going to move into the breakout rooms.
You need to make me a co-host, I think, because he's disabled sharing.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Always the way, isn't it?
Let me make you co-host again. There you go.
Thank you.
It's really fun, and I think we've sort of done this in our informal way before, but I think we'll try this, and then all feedback welcome at the end as well, whether we do this again. So over to you.
Yeah, so thanks, Nancy. I mean, me and Nancy have run these physically for a number of years, so they've always been quite fun. I always get a lot of ideas from it, and I always remember one of the events I ran years ago, someone said I learnt more in the last 20 minutes than I've learnt in the last 4 conferences I've been to, just because I had a conversation with someone doing the same work as them. So my challenge has been, I don't know if it's unique, but probably quite unique because of my sector I work in. I work in with the public sector, so I work with local authorities, central government, voluntary sector organisations, NHS, fire, police, anyone working in that public sector environment has been really massively affected during the COVID-19. And so this idea about how do we bring those communities back after lockdown was really sort of quite important to me. And I'm guessing some other communities may have had some similar situations as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about Knowledge Hub. We've been a project that's been running since 2006, so we're old school. So we started when sort of Facebook was just exciting to exist. We were set up as a knowledge management project in local government with the idea of trying to get the 360 or plus local authorities in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland to share with each other. Imagine that, all these different organisations all doing the same work, not sharing with each other, all doing their own things. So as part of the organisation I was working with at the time, we were a government quango set up to try and be a knowledge broker. So we were looking around the idea of knowledge sharing communities specifically. And over that period of time, we've had thousands of communities come and go. We've had thousands of different organisations work with us and use the platform. And we've gone from an organisation where we dictated sort of like the topics that we did to eventually becoming what's now called Knowledge Hub and going completely independent. And we now are more of a software provider, but we also support the community and run. There's only 3 of us that do that. So we've got 3 of us behind the scenes supporting 2,000 plus communities. Not all of them are what are classed as traditional communities. Some of them are projects, some of them are working groups, some are running events. So we've got one group up in Scotland, up in the islands up in Scotland, where they use it just to run their exams because it saves them a massive amount of money having to travel into Glasgow or Edinburgh to run their exams. They put all their materials on their post-exam in one of our groups, then they close it down. So we've got a whole range of different things, but I'm concentrating more about on the community side. So over that period of time, as I say, we have lots of groups on there. Some interesting stories. I mean, one of the groups that helped us up years ago was around trying to establish a single Cornish language. I mean, this is how random some of the groups we have. So before, there was no written form of Cornish in existence. So we had local authorities working with academics to produce a single written form of Cornish. So I have all these types of traditional communities around social care, housing, and I'll get these random ones about writing the Cornish language, or one I mentioned earlier on to Serena and Michelle, I've got one around fishing vessels in Scotland. So they're all very different, all quite unique, but we've seen some interesting bits that's come up. So our main situation, since March, since COVID-19, the public sector got massively hit, not only in staffing wise, but having to completely change their way they work. They've had to go from a lot of organisations to being, the idea of digital or collaboration or digital communication, digital collaboration was we don't do that, to having to learn how to run teams and do web conferences. So we've had an interesting thing around that, but at the same time we've had loads of groups that have thrived because we've had to deal with certain situations. So there's groups like LACEF, which is one of our things around bailiffs, which is an interesting group, and those guys there have been running for years about how they've had to deal with this in situation. We've had other groups that have really thrived. We've had loads of groups that have specifically been set up to tackle COVID-19 issues. So it could be anything from like the test and trace in particular areas, to ones that are looking about how they can re-establish some elements coming back into after lockdown. But we also know we've had loads of groups that have stalled because they've been pulled into different projects. They may have been furloughed. I know that some of the other organisations like British Council, they've had to be, some have been furloughed in those. Lots of people moved in different roles. For this digital transformation where everyone's like, oh, we've got to use technology, how do we do that? So that might have sort of like pulled people away from it. And me and Nancy moan about this all the time, that we've got this, we class ourselves as like these sort of smokers because we have to do homeschooling. So we have to dip out every 10 minutes to go check on our kids to make sure they're okay. They haven't killed, smashed the house up. So we've had lots of issues like that about some of the groups, why they're sort of stalled at that point. So we're looking at ways, we're looking for your ideas about how we can get them back as it's starting to change. Some examples, I've just picked out 4 here. I've got one more in a minute. So we've got people who work with like Historic England, such as Rachel there. So about how they've actually deal with COVID-19 for people working in the Historic England environment. We've had groups from Public Health England about how they're dealing with it. And I'll share these slides, some great quotes. I can also send you a link if you want to. So loads of more quotes about some of our organisations and some of our groups, how they've been doing it. So the LACEF group with Barry there. So there's a whole range of different people. We just put a quick message out a little while, about 2 weeks ago. Said, have you got any good stories about how you've been dealing, your communities have been dealing with COVID-19? And within about, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, we had about 30 or 40 quotes with people saying, this is what's been happening, this is how we've been dealing with it. And I wanted to pick this one. This is one I picked up really quickly. This is around health and trading standards, about how Friday night before it all happened, all lockdown happened, they created this group and went for nothing to just over 2,000 members in a matter of a month or 2. And they were getting content through from government and having to deal with it within an hour and a half to make it live. So within that period, they've had to rapidly change, dealing with the trading standards elements. I mean, you know what it's like with trading standards and how sort of it's going to work in your supermarket, or it's going to work in your local retail areas. They've had to put this into place. It was such short notice. And some of the things on here about how they've gone from sharing documentation, sharing guidance, sharing materials of each other, and rapidly put this together. So it's taken it. This one is taking some of the momentum away from other groups that are doing something similar, but eventually they will go back. So we've now got to try and speak about some of this stuff. So that's some example about how rapidly we've had to deal with stuff. And all these guys that are doing this are all volunteers. It's not their job as a community manager. They're going, right, we need to deal with this. We'll use what we have to do it, and we support them by giving them ideas and tips and techniques on what to do and how to get the crew up and running. So there's a team behind the scenes. There's 3 of us, well, mainly 2 of us, myself and Dimple, and we run a facilitators community that's got over 2,000 members, and we run regular activities for them. We run walkthroughs about how to use the platform. We run regular webinars on different topic areas, so anything from using the analytics tool to how to support engagement, how to write good newsletters, how to ask good questions. We've built a massive resource centre as well, one about getting your group started, but we have a big one in our facilitators community of 16 years worth of material that we've created at that point in time, and we've broken it down into, are you new to this, or are you more experienced, or you're an expert? So we have different materials for different people at different stages of their community life cycle as well. We offer one-to-one support when groups are starting. Not everyone takes us up on it, which is really annoying. I'd love if everyone said, yeah, we'll have a chat with you, because the amount of groups that we speak to, you go, so who's your audience? What are you looking to achieve? How do you know you've been successful? And they go, oh, we don't know that. So why are you starting? So after half an hour, I've actually got them thinking about who are going to be their audiences, what they're looking to achieve, how they're going to do it. And also we run regular check-ins with our groups. So we email out at different points in time saying, I know how you're getting on. Do you need any help or assistance? And what I've noticed over the last few months, normally we get quite a bit of response, but the last few months it's gone quiet because they've been pulled in different things. So we're going to try and think about how to do it. So this is where it comes to my challenge. This is where I need your help. I'm doing loads of stuff, but am I doing it right? So how do we get these communities back up and running? Say, for example, we've got some groups around apprenticeships. So everyone's looking at apprenticeships, people coming out of schools, but also people looking to change jobs. And those have all slowed down because of the situation and starting to ramp up again. So what can we do to support them? where should we start? What should we focus on? And also, if you've done this sort of thing before, what sort of approaches have you taken to get communities to come back to life? If they've stalled at different points, it may have been that the lead facilitator may have left and you need to bring someone in. Is there any examples of things that you've done there that might be useful for us to do? And really, I'm looking for anything, man. I don't care if it's crazy. It could be whatever you want. If you just come up with some random idea, it's like, well, I don't mind giving it a try. We can't lose anything by giving it a go. So that's sort of my outline. So really the idea is there anything that you guys want to ask to clarify about what I've been doing? And try not to give me any suggestions of things to do now. That's the idea for the group part. But if you've got anything that you want to clarify or ask about, I'm quite happy to sort of like clarify anything on this.
Great, thank you, Michael. So groups that once active have had their heads turned in other directions now need to be revitalized. How should he do it? Where should we start? Where should we focus on? What approaches have you tried that have worked? What can we say to help Michael and each other? Has anyone got any questions? No, we're all looking good. Okay, so what happens now is I'll automatically put you in some breakout rooms. Hopefully you'll have Michelle, Serena or I in each room, and we'll help facilitate and provide ideas and capture any notes. And then we'll come back to Michael with those in about 15-20 minutes. I'll give you a reminder when there's a couple of minutes left, because I'm sure you'll discuss a lot in that time. But what we want to do is prioritise a couple to bring back to Michael that we can all hear from each other's groups. So does that make sense? Any questions? I think the question for me was just resource. So they've got resource, but they're just not 100% focused as community managers, which is obviously the ideal. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay then. It's 20 past. So they'll automatically close in 20 minutes, but I'll give you a reminder at 18 minutes past. If you need to come back into the main room for any reason, Michael will be there, but otherwise we'll see you shortly. So let me open all the rooms and I'll see you on the other side. Bye. She had some bad ideas, Michael.
Expect anything else?
Welcome back, everybody.
Oh, thank you.
How was that? Ours was really rushed. I don't know what how it was for everyone else.
Maybe a whole day to talk about this, isn't it?
Yeah. This is where we do normally do it on a full day. So while you're getting settled back in, Michael, this is the ones from our group. We had a great discussion. Jennifer, Sarah, and Ed. Where should we start? Keep a channel for conversations going, even just on the community. What do people want? What do they want us to focus on? Sarah had a great idea about asking and generating user-generated content, so it's really specific and relevant. We had some ideas about bringing the COVID stories, so the ones that you said were successful in other communities, now they're in their business as usual ones, get them to share them so they inspire the ones that maybe weren't involved in those thriving ones. Jennifer said keep it personal, a direct email. She spent 4 days writing to all her community members, asking if they were frontline workers so she could prioritise support and things to them. And then what should we focus on? Online events and resources that the audience are most interested in. And how she did that was finding specifics from when they sign up and sort of cross-checking what they're interested in. And I put that at the bottom, the activation journey. And then finally, we felt we'd love to know more about the specifics in each community, Michael, which I know is a bit of a challenge with your scale, but what's the actual situation in each one? What do they have a clear target, for example? And if not, maybe you start there.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a whirlwind, sorry.
No, that's good. No, I mean,
I think we'll pause. Should we pause, Michael, and hear from each of the groups, and then you can ask us? Just want to make sure you hear all these great insights. I think we're all inspired in our room. Right, over. Serena, what about you? What did you find?
Thanks, Nancy. So we were talking through the various different stages that might be involved with engaging not only an actual community, by people who are running the communities or facilitating those communities, and getting a sense from Michael that he's looking at managing people who are managing communities. So that sense of that additional layer that's going on here. So it's almost as if you're running a community of practice on top of facilitating the nuts and bolts of those discussion spaces. So we were talking about a really important kind of step in terms of differentiating between the work of engaging those community leaders or facilitators and the work of engaging the community itself. And Robin came up with that two-step process, which was really helpful. Something that Adrian mentioned that was really helpful was around the importance of engaging with the core members in any community. So making sure that those core members are participating, because that's what will help draw in either newer members or inactive members. That's a really important part of this. We were also talking about the importance of fact finding, again going back into the causes of this. What are the barriers to participation? And just thinking about those motivations. So what motivations do the facilitators or managers of those communities have? What motivations do the community members have themselves? And then thinking about how do you bring people together in order to help kind of supercharge the work that they're doing in terms of facilitation. So is there scope for group, like sessional idea generation sessions? Could there be potential options around that if people are time poor on when they can participate or how they access that learning? And then just thinking about how you incentivize people to participate in those sessions, making it clear that there's benefits so that they find the time in order to participate. And then just thinking about how do you make that as practical and as effective as possible, and can you hook in a potential option for one-to-one discussions? So that was a big summary of us. The big three things were being flexible on when and how to offer that support. The second thing on helping to identify and bottom out what those key issues are. And then the third thing on focusing on the core members of the community.
So succinctly done. Well done. Thank you. Again, Michael, I'm sure you've got questions, but let's make sure we hear from Michelle as well before we, Michelle's group, before you can ask us clarifying questions and we can have a little debate.
So I had Harriet and Ariel in my group. And so we were talking about where to start, and really Ariel mentioned that, you know, his current process looks great, but maybe there needs to be some more research about identifying the needs of all these groups. So we really focused on the research part. So, you know, hosting external workshops, of course, this is good. Hopefully you'll get lots of ideas from from today. And then, you know, focus groups. So inviting, you know, certain members, maybe it's your core members, maybe it's just really randomized members to focus groups to find out what are the needs, what are the solutions that we can provide. And then targeted phone surveys. We had hosting external workshop, that was again. One kind of like strategy would be to map out the groups. So in order to prioritize and figure out who you're going to go after first, focusing on, you know, those active and non-active, and looking at what are those communities that actually should be re-engaging or are performing well, and go after those. And then maybe even, you know, create this peer support or buddy system where you could partner up those really engaged groups with the, you know, the not as performing well groups. I'm sure everyone is going great, doing their best they can.
As long as you don't label them as you.
It's a good little bit, not as good. Yeah. I would be the worst at labeling.
No, but I think, but it's marrying the people that need it, you know, to be inspired by the others. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and I think we kind of looked at your system that you currently have, and what are the things that you maybe aren't doing yet. You might be doing them. So surprise and delights, maybe a way to kind of reward the people, or, you know, re-energize them. Maybe it's a chocolate, maybe it's, you know, some flowers, you know, something that surprises them and picks them back up and realigns their focus to the communities And then also a rewards program. So if there's a way that other groups can nominate other groups that are doing well, or maybe it's more like a gamification where there's like a reward system where people are achieving certain things and moving up the ladder higher. So yeah, that was our ideas. Hopefully I summarized them well for us.
Great, thank you, Michelle. So Michael, now it's your chance to ask us questions and clarify any of those ideas, or explore them together a bit in more detail.
No, I mean, thank you. There's some really good ideas. A lot of them I've been thinking about, and some of bits I've done in the past, but maybe it's a good time to go back to them. So you said about the needs in research. So in the past, what we normally do is annually we do a wants and offers exercise with the facilitators community, and we ask them what they're looking for, what things they want, what can offer. So what we then do based on that, we then create a program of activities based on what their needs are. And so we've been running that, and it's been especially around sort of like the engagement side. But maybe we need to redo that now because the world's changed in the last 4 months, from people who would never use Zoom or Teams or any type of other collaboration software to you have to use it. This is the way you work now. So the usual, especially with people in the public sector, I mean, they're not the youngest, they're not the most tech savvy in the world, and they've had to learn really quickly about how to do this stuff. And so weirdly enough, one of the biggest discussions we had, and we've got one group that's for everyone on the platform, was about how you move from face-to-face to online. And it had sort of like hundreds of different comments on it about how you do it, what you should be looking to do. A lot of people had a lot of people don't have the skills to how to host and facilitate online compared to the usual traditional face-to-face. So I think that's a couple of areas we could definitely focus on, and using those sort of mixture of going back and asking those questions, what's missing, what's changed, and what we can build to support those. The other bit is we definitely need to do something around the users. So we've actually got a big revamp going on in sort of October, November. We're having a complete redesign of the platform. So that should make it a lot easier. That means we can build in all the training and support for the users rather than relying on the facilitators to teach the users. So that's the route we've always gone down. We've gone teach the facilitators to teach their members. Maybe we need to do a bit of both because we've not been able to do that with a small team. There's only 3 of us trying to run the whole thing. So the other ideas you suggested about the rewards, again, that's with Nancy bugging Nancy about a super user program. We've got a higher level option as well. We've got not only facilitators, we also have a thing called networks. So we have certain organizations that have their own space within our platform, and they have their own network of groups. So we've got stuff with them, and one of the things we're looking to bring back via them was we've run competitions and awards in the past for groups, and that went really, really well. But when we've changed organizations over the last, I think I've gone through 4 organizations in the last 16 years. I've gone from
the companies evolved.
Different companies evolved. I've gone from working for the Improvement Development Agency to being merged with Local Government Association, which you might hear about on TV, being sold to a company called Liberator, to being bought, buying ourselves out, and then merging with a new company and creating a new organisation. So but we've still kept the platform and the community going during times like that. So it's amazing that the community still carried on no matter where we've been. So we've still got that nice momentum and the people still love it. But yeah, definitely something around the rewards, giving the kudos to say that you are doing really well, you should be proud of yourself. And we've done stuff before, like we do the CMAD events every year, and we invite people to those. I've done CMAD awards in the past as well, or whatever it's called now. Is it still CMAD? But it's now not appreciation, it's something
Advancement
else.
Day.
Yeah.
That's it. So there's a lot of stuff around that. The barriers to participation, we know, especially public sector, if it's not by email, that it's unusual for them. So it is, I think hopefully that, again, that's that refresh and change. And I know we've worked with groups in the past where we've actually got them to put on their email, we won't answer this question, you have to go to the community to answer it. So they've actually put stuff on their actual email saying we won't answer it here, but we answer it here instead.
Ed referenced Mighty Networks as a great onboarding journey. As you're upgrading, you might want to experience some other people's onboarding process, because they're so much more advanced than.
Oh yeah, our ones are rubbish.
I mean, I don't mean yours, but I think the ones that have been around for a while, you've had your process and that hasn't been looked at for a while. and then
Yeah,
the new guys have sort of.
yeah, we've got like bits we've been wanting to do. So when someone becomes a community manager, we've been wanting to do a full onboarding with sort of like regular emails every week to teach them different tactics and techniques, but we've not been able to do that. So it's all done manually. All the stuff I have to do is manual. So me contacting groups is one, like someone mentioned, is it 4 weeks of contacting people? That's me every day doing the same stuff, emailing people, contacting people, asking people how they're getting on, and it's all one-to-one. It's me going through a massive big database of stuff, pulling out that information, trying to work out what everyone's been up to. And I'm hoping in our future version we'll have a lot more automation behind the scenes so I can create it and write it, and the system triggers it to then allow me to have those conversations rather than me spending a lot of time doing all the boring stuff. I mean, it's like my colleague Dimple, we wrote a blog the other week, was around why don't people read the stuff we send them? And so when the new community starts, we give them a load of information, we simplified it, and then 10 minutes later they go, how do I invite someone to the group? And it's number one thing on our list. And it's just a constant challenge.
Well, maybe that's what the point is personalize it for a few people and get more people doing the right behaviors, and then you can change. We're nearly out of time. Michael, how was this for you? How was this process?
Loads of great ideas. Loads of great ideas I can take on, I can put back into the plan, I can tweak, I can go back to and go, well, we've stopped doing that, we should maybe do it again. But I'm hoping everyone else also got some ideas as well, things they could do.
Yeah, how was it for everyone else? I just put a question on the chat. I don't know how, just having that chance to discuss. We've got a thumbs up from Ariel. Tell us what you think. If you've got a challenge that you want to present to this group, the audience, you know, we usually get a good support from a wide range of experience, as you are all today. What's lovely about the CMX events is you don't have to explain what you do with the community, as everyone knows and has got it, which is great. So do keep your feedback coming on, and don't be scared to go, you know, to share your challenge. You know, it's great that Michael came forward today and sort of said, because I think the conversations I'm having, people are feeling the same. So yeah, it's helpful to have aired it and shared
so
it.
If anyone wants to use this technique, a few years ago I wrote a book when I was at the IDA about different KM techniques, knowledge management techniques, I use the word KM, and one of them is the peer assist, so I can share that document on the CMX London channel. It's got like how to do that. It's old, great, but there's some really simple techniques in there that you can use with communities, which a lot of people probably never come across before. I mean, I know Jennifer's mentioned that you've used this process before, which is great, but a lot of other people, when I say let's do a peer assist or a knowledge cafe approach, they're like, what's that? I never heard about this before.
I love because it's neutral and non-offending, you know, it's kind of like you could, and so then again, you're not, you know, being British and standing around going, oh no, I can't possibly suggest you shouldn't do that. You know, this is great. So we're nearly out of time.
Nancy,
oh, sorry.
Sneakily, I have written a document on how to revitalise groups.
Before the session? How's that? Like,
it's an old one, but I wrote it ages ago, so I've been still using it. But the idea was to update it, so it's just I did a similar session with my facilitators as well, asked them what they thought were, and everyone come back to that purpose. So no, so you sort of mentioned that sort of area. It's like, what's the purpose of the group? If you don't know what the purpose of the group, how can you revitalise it if you don't know what it's about, what it's trying to achieve?
And the purposes might have changed. That's the thing, that we're not adapting, maybe.
Well, they're not adapting. They're not thinking it's changed, and they're still written it up as one. This is the purpose, but the purpose may have moved on 6 months, 8 months ago, and they haven't actually updated and told their members that the purpose has changed.
I'm going to pause you there because we're nearly out of time, and I'd love Michelle just quickly to tell us about next month, because we run these every on the last Thursday of the month. Michelle, what's happening next month?
Yes, next month on Thursday, September 24th, which is the last Thursday of the month, Oliver Byrne will be speaking to us about developing successful content strategies for your community. So he manages, he supports external communities, so he will be bringing his, experience, ideas, and then we'll be able to do breakout sessions again and kind of brainstorm what we've learned and come back together. So yeah, please sign up. I've dropped the link in the chat. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
I'm going to put for Jennifer, I'm going to put the CMX Slack. So we have, yeah, if you don't know already, we have a Slack channel. I'm going to send you the link to register in our chat. You should get it after the meeting as well. There's obviously lots of channels within the CMX, but CMX London has its own one where we post the events and things like that. But there's community events, community job opportunities, all sorts of things, channel for the summit. So if you haven't registered before, go there, sign up, and hopefully come to an event with us again if you found it useful. Any questions or comments from anyone before we wrap up? I feel like it's a bit fast and furious today, but that might be just me.
It's been really good, really useful.
It's just an hour a month, but we always get value from it ourselves, and we hope you do too. So
yeah, it's so nice to connect with people that are doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
You don't have to explain what you do.
I'm doing this, stop banging your head against the wall.
yeah. I know, if I could take a video, like a TikTok or a boomerang of all of us, I think all the way through everyone's like
Any networking.
that's nice.